Hello, good evening. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad, Kuttan.
Welcome to Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider the news of the day. Let's begin with news of Rafizi Ramli's acquittal by the Shah Alam High Court. The PKR Vice President was acquitted of disclosing the bank details belonging to the National Feedlot Corporation and breaching the Banking and Financial Institutions Act, also known as BAFIA. Now, this means Rafizi and former public bank clerk Johari Muhammad are fully discharged from their 30-month jail sentence, which began from February of 2018. Sharaad.
Right. Well, I'm not sure if this is a story that has final closure, at least in terms of the National Feedlot Corporation and that scandal, but it certainly does bring a particular phase in Rafizi Ramli's own political career to a close. So very interesting because in many ways he was a man associated with the expose politics of the day. A politics necessitated by the fact that much of our media failed to do their job. They failed to look deeply for stories where corruption was, where there was abuse of power. And I think in many ways whistleblowers were going to politicians to expose that stories.
Well, this was back in 2012 when both Rafizi and Johari were charged under the now defunct Section 97 of BAFIA. And this was, of course, for disclosing the accounts belonging to NFC and Muhammad Saleh, the husband of the former Wanita UMNO chief Shahrizad Jalil. And you're absolutely right, Sharaad, because, I mean, this was, if you think about it, back in 2012, I mean, media was largely quite scared to report about this. I remember reporting about this and also being questioned about my reporting on the NFC case. So there was a period where it was almost difficult for the media to do investigative, reports into financial mismanagement. And, you know, you had politicians like Rafizi, which I might add, the Whistleblower Act does not fully protect, right?
Yeah, so there are many things that I guess this particular news will help us sort of focus again on. Do we have a Whistleblower Act that is
robust
and enables precisely the kind of things it was intended to enable, which is to shine a light in those dark corners of governance in government or in corporations where misdeeds might be happening. It also, I think it's a chance for us to talk about today. We're now almost 2 years into this Malaysia Baru. Is the media doing that kind of investigative work? Is it investing in investigative journalism, in creating those teams that need to do the deep investigations, using data, using archives, whatever it is at their disposal? Is that what we're seeing, on front pages of our newspapers or our portals, or are we actually seeing much of the same as we've had before, which is, politician A says something, politician B says something else, and that keeps getting reported back and forth?
That's true. I have to say it's probably the latter, but there are some, I guess, outstanding works of media investigations that have, made headlines in journalism today. Do you think that expose politics is still the name of the game today?
Well, I think the expose politics fills a gap, right? And to the extent that there is a gap and that gap continues, I think it will still be a possibility. But of course, let's just say the charm and the social courage of an individual like Rafizi Ramli is perhaps something of the past, because that was, created.
Why do you say that?
Well, I think it was created at a time when politics was of a certain sort, right? Now, those in opposition perhaps don't have the same desires or same tendencies or impulses as those who came up in a PKR or a DAP or Amana PAS, in fact, as their predecessor. They had a very different politics. I don't know if it's going to be replicated in the federal opposition of today, in UMNO and PAS.
There you go. All right, we'll move on to other stories of the day. We have Electoral Reform Committee member Wong Huat was denied entry into Kuching by the Sarawak Immigration Department yesterday. Now, according to Huat, his request for medical attention was not entertained until he sought the intervention of Health Minister Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad. In response to this, the immigration authorities in Sarawak have rejected claims that they denied him medical attention.
Okay, so this goes back to what happened last year at G14, right, Melissa? In many ways, the country changed, but it changed in uneven ways, right? So depending on where you are in the country, post G14, Malaysia looks very different. In Sarawak, of course, what you have is a rebranded state government. It used to be Barisan Nasional Sarawak, now it's a GPS. Now, the question is, what is their DNA, or what is their political culture? Wong, of course, very critical of his treatment, and he stands by is the narrative that he's put out. The important thing is whether denials it. We know that Sarawak has the right to deny entry to
Sabah
West.
and Sarawak. They have autonomy over immigration matters, right?
The question is that used or abused in ways, and we know that it was abused in the past, to deny entry to the federal opposition.
Well, Bersih activists as well. I think, some of the names that have been denied entry. Maria Chin comes to mind, Ambiga Srinivasan, we had Thomas Fan. All these people have been denied entry into the state of Sarawak. But here's the thing, Sharaad. Now, a lot of these activists once opposition activists are now government officials, or at least working with the government. So Huat was supposed to attend an electoral system workshop in Kuching on behalf of the Electoral Reform Committee. So he was on their government business. Right?
Yes, but what's also interesting is that Sarawak, once with the Barisan Nasional and aligned with the federal government, is now not aligned with the federal government and is in some ways an opposition state, right, in terms of the state government. So the dynamics are interesting. The issue is that regardless of the party affiliation or the government of the day, is there a kind of norm? Is there going to be a new normal for Malaysia in terms of democratic governance, in terms of saying, well, okay, this person might be critical of my government, state government, or in this case, the Sabah and Sarawak of the territories, but will they still have the right to come to the country, to the territory, because they are Malaysians?
Right. So, and this is a new normal. You're saying.
Well, I don't know if it's has it been established. I think is the question we need to ask.
And that's something we want you to consider tonight. Moving on to other news of the day, an MCA-backed group claiming to represent e-hailing drivers plans to sue Grab and the Transport Ministry. This is over alleged failure to protect drivers' rights from discrimination and unfair dismissal. So the campaign to protect the rights of e-hailing drivers in Malaysia said that it had issued a letter of demand to the ministry and to the e-hailing company with several demands. Then some of the demands include recognizing the rights of e-hailing drivers under the Employment Act.
Well, in many ways, this is a fascinating area because, again, we come back to what exactly do we want the gig economy to produce. But, anecdotally, I must say, Melissa, I spend a lot of time in e-hailing services because I don't drive, see? So I need those cars. And I talk to those drivers and from various services. And what I've learned is that there is a level of kind of arbitrariness, or there's a level in which the normal procedures that might come after a complaint, that you get to defend yourself, those don't seem to exist. I mean, I'm just saying these are anecdotes I've heard from one side of the story.
I understood. And I think that what it boils down to is very much what we talk about when we discuss the gig economy. Are people who participate in the gig economy considered employees, right? So once you've established a definition, then it can fall under the Employment Act. But within the gig economy, it's about being part-time, it's about controlling your hours, it's about participation on...
You're a contractor.
You're a contractor. So getting definitions right, I think, are the crux of this problem.
Yeah, but also the question, I think, for the companies involved is whether they produce a narrative of concern about the people who participate in the ecosystem, whether they're contractors or whether they're workers. Do you care about them? Are you being fair?
Right. So no discrimination in terms of dismissal or hiring.
That's right. So if you hear that, this company is unfair, you might actually, as in the woke generation might, say, well, I'm not going to participate in your business because I don't think you're ethical. And ethics, believe it or not, is the new norm for especially a particular generation. It's not just the price point.
All right. Okay, after this, we're going to cross to Johor for updates on the Tanjung Piai by-election. So stay tuned to consider this.